I've got my old mate Dave back here again. Yeah, he's the fancy accountant who gives us all the good stuff. Hey.
Today, I want to talk about one of my favourite topics.
Oh, don't tell me. I know it's tax.
Tax on some of the big technology companies. Because one of the things we've talked about it, ages ago in the past. But, mate, how much tax do you think Google have paid in New Zealand or are going to pay for on their profit last year? How much tax do you think they're going to pay?
I'm guessing, for 5 to 10 million.
So they had a pre-tax profit in New Zealand of 18 million.
18 million.
Now that's profit, that's before tax. Then they get to do some timing adjustments because of different jurisdictions, and they end up with a tax bill of $3 million. Now, don't get me wrong, $3 million, if I had to pay a $3 million tax bill, I'd be a crying mess in the corner over there. But for these guys, they're freaking huge. And one of the things that's really interesting, and this was brought to my attention by a tax lawyer by the name of Terry Boucher, they had what they call intercompany transactions. That means transactions with other Google companies. So they had in last year ended 31 December 2021, they paid other Google companies $690,818,666, which means
$600 million. And they put that off to another company and still only paid $3 million. Is that it? And that was revenue generated in New Zealand.
Revenue generated in New Zealand. If they didn't pay these fees to overseas companies, that would have whacked their tax bill up by $195 million more. They would have paid $198 million rather than $3 million.
Oh, this is a rort. This is an absolute rort. Dave, you and I pay, I don't know, you're the accountant here, but roughly I work out a third. A third of your income is taxation, roughly.
Yeah, somewhere around there, sure. Why not? Why not?
Or 25% even. They're not even, 3 out of 18 is not even near that number, but 3 out of, what did you say? 600 million.
697 million. Look, the chances are some of that fee, and this is where it starts to get really, really sticky and why there's a lot of backwards and forwards with the OECD and a deal hasn't been able to be done, is because some technology has been developed and sure, there should be a fee for that. But what's fair? And it's one of the things that in a country like New Zealand, where our corporate tax rate is much higher than, say, Ireland, where Google happened to be headquartered, then they have an incentive to shift their income back to Ireland. And so we get this real thing about what's fair, because I go $197 million of extra tax kicking around. That's not chump change. That'll pay for some schools, that'll pay for some nurses.
Lot of coin. Yep, that could have saved us out of our bloody woes right now. They may even help pull us out of recession once we get in there. My God, it's not right, Dave.
I don't know what the fair amount is, but I go at the moment, that doesn't seem right. And Google, I've not looked for a while, Google aren't the worst offender. And Australia had a bit of a go at Facebook, and Facebook played hardball with them, and it ends up being a difficult thing to do. And that's why the OECD has gone, hey, we'll tackle this together, but it involves all of the countries getting on board.
Well, that's the only way to deal with it, because if Google pulled out of New Zealand, I don't think I could breathe or perhaps exist any longer, because I just rely on it so much.
They're not going to pull out of New Zealand. Even if they had to pay tax over here, it's still worthwhile.
Look, we're just a crumb. Margins. We're just a micro spot on the map to them. They could pull out of New Zealand, no problems at all, if we give them a rough time. But the whole globe working together and saying, pay your fair share, I like that. I like that.
It's a great idea, but the problem is you can't even get the politicians down in Wellington all playing nicely. You now extrapolate that out over a number of countries, and right there's the problem.
There we go. Well, look, Dave, thanks very much for the facts and figures. And I tell you what, we'll see you next week. And I reckon you've really touched a really important issue there for us. Cheers, mate.
Till next time.